There is something inherently isolating about a gas station in the middle of the night. It's a beacon of light in an ocean of darkness, but that light doesn't just attract customers. It attracts the lost, the desperate, and the dangerous. This experience happened about 3 years ago when I was working at a Chevron just off a fairly quiet exit in Ohio. It was around 2:30 in the morning on a Tuesday, which is usually the deadest time of the week. I was behind the counter, scrolling through my phone, when a beat-up sedan pulled into the lot. The car didn't pull up to a pump. It just parked near the air pump station on the far side of the lot, barely illuminated by the street lamp. I watched it for a minute, expecting someone to get out and fill a tire, but nobody moved. The engine was still running. You could see the exhaust puffing out in the cold air. I figured maybe they were making a phone call or checking directions. I went back to my phone. Fast forward about 20 minutes later, and I looked up again. The car was still there. Engine running. Lights off. I started to get a bad feeling. It's against policy to go outside alone at night if there's suspicious activity, so I just kept an eye on it. Then, the driver's side door opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, wearing a heavy coat that looked too warm for the weather, and he didn't walk toward the store. He walked toward the tree line behind the station. I lost sight of him in the dark. I was genuinely confused. Who parks at a gas station at 3 a.m. to go for a walk in the woods? I waited 5 minutes. Then 10. He didn't come back. Just as I was debating whether to call the non-emergency line, the passenger door opened. A woman got out. She looked terrified. She was looking around frantically, and then she locked eyes with me through the store window. She started sprinting toward the door. I unlocked the door electronically. We keep it locked after midnight, and she burst in, breathless. She was shaking so bad she could barely speak. She told me that the man, her Uber driver, had been acting strange for the last hour, taking random turns, muttering incomprehensible things. He had stopped the car and told her he had to check the trap. I had no idea what to do, but I'm honestly terrified just thinking about what would have happened if she stayed in that car. I locked the door behind her and called 911 immediately. The police arrived about 15 minutes later. They checked the car. It was empty. They checked the woods. Nothing. But here is the part that keeps me up at night. When they ran the plates, the car had been reported stolen 3 days prior from a state over. And inside the trunk, they found a shovel, a bag of lime, and several rolls of duct tape. For all I know, that man was watching us from the tree line the whole time we were waiting for the cops. I quit that job 2 weeks later. I couldn't handle the feeling of being watched through that glass every night. This next story isn't from when I was an employee, but a customer. It was last winter, and I was driving back to college after visiting my parents. It was a long drive, about 6 hours, and I made the mistake of leaving late. By the time I needed gas, it was nearly 1 a.m. and I was in the middle of rural Pennsylvania. I pulled into this station that looked modern enough. It had those bright LED lights that make everything look sterile. There was only one other car there, a red pickup truck at the pump opposite me. I got out to pump my gas. It was freezing. I put the nozzle in and leaned against my car, trying to stay warm. That's when I noticed the guy at the red truck. He wasn't pumping gas. The nozzle was in his tank, but he wasn't holding it. He was just standing there, facing me. He had this wide, unnatural smile on his face. Not a friendly smile. It looked painful, like he was forcing the corners of his mouth up as high as they could go. I tried to ignore him. I looked at my phone, checked the gallons ticking up on the pump. But I could feel his eyes on me. I looked up again. He had moved. He was now standing at the back of his truck, 5 feet closer to me. Still smiling. Still not saying a word. "Can I help you?" I asked. My voice sounded small in the empty lot. He didn't answer. He just took a slow step toward me. Then another. His movements were jerky, almost like a glitching video. I felt a pit form in my stomach. I stopped the pump at $10. I didn't care about a full tank anymore. I just wanted to leave. I put the nozzle back and turned to get in my driver's seat. As I grabbed the handle, I heard him sprint. It wasn't a walk anymore. It was a dead sprint. I threw myself into the car and slammed the lock button just as he slammed into the window. He didn't hit it with his fist, he hit it with his face. He pressed that smiling face against the glass, his eyes wide and unblinking, steaming up the window. I fumbled with my keys, dropped them, picked them up, and finally got the car started. I threw it in reverse and peeled out of there. As I sped onto the highway, I looked in my rearview mirror. He was standing in the middle of the empty lot, waving. Just waving at me like we were old friends. I drove for another hour before I stopped at a well-lit rest area with security. I checked my car for scratches, but there was nothing. Just a smear of grease on the window where his forehead had been. I have no idea what his intentions were, but I think I did the right thing by not waiting to find out. This experience happened in my first month working the night shift at a Shell station. This station was small, just a kiosk really, with a tiny back room where we kept overstock. The back door led to an alleyway where the dumpsters were. It was a shitty area, to be honest. It was around 3 a.m. I was in the back room stocking cigarettes when I heard a soft tapping on the back steel door. I froze. That door is heavy steel. It's always locked. Nobody uses it except for deliveries, and those only happen during the day. I figured it was maybe a homeless person looking for shelter or cardboard. I ignored it and went back to the front. 10 minutes later, I heard it again. A heavy thudding. I walked up to the door and looked through the peephole. It was pitch black outside. The motion sensor light that's usually above the dumpster wasn't working. I couldn't see anything. "We're closed back here, go around to the front," I yelled through the door. Silence. Then a voice. "I'm hurt." It sounded wet. That's the only way I can describe it. Like someone speaking with a mouth full of liquid. Now, I'm not heartless. If someone is hurt, I want to help. But something about the tone sent a chill down my spine. It was too flat. Too calm for someone who was injured. "I can call an ambulance for you," I said. "I'm calling 911 right now." As soon as I said 911, the demeanor on the other side changed instantly. The voice dropped an octave, losing that hurt quality entirely. "Don't do that. Just open the door. I know you're alone in there." Then it stopped. Just before the police arrived, I heard the sound of a vehicle peeling out from the alleyway. When the cops checked the back, they found the motion sensor light had been smashed out. And all over the steel door, there were scratches. Deep scratches in the paint. But the scariest part was what they found right next to the door frame. Someone had jammed a piece of metal into the lock mechanism from the outside, trying to jimmy it. If I had unlocked that deadbolt even for a second to peek out, the door wouldn't have been able to latch back shut. They would have been inside in a second. To this day, I check that back door lock 3 times every shift. I don't know who was out there, but I know they weren't looking for help.